We've got Andrew Clennell, Ashleigh Gillon, Darren Barnett and Parnell Palmer-McGuinness. Darren, your reflections on the results as you've seen Tim Wilson, Anthony Chisholm, really both opposite sides of the coin. Obviously, the joy of victory there for Chisholm and the devastation for Tim Wilson.
True, but I think there's a lot of resources and money pushing both of the major parties, and I'll call the coalition a major party. But you've got now very well-funded teal independents attacking that moderate side, and you've got a mixture of UAP, Pauline Hanson's One Nation, other right-wing parties pushing Labor out in its industrial heartland and out in the mining regions. So it's becoming more difficult for anybody to walk both sides of the street, whether you are a Liberal Prime Minister or a Labor Prime Minister. And that fracturing of the vote, you'd have to think it's going to be a gargantuan task to try and cauterise that, whether you are a Liberal PM or a Labor PM. So I think it's going to be a difficult term of government.
Ashleigh Gillon, what was your read on what Parnell had to say earlier? Tim Wilson also touching on the fact that he wasn't a one-off, that it was part of a bigger wave. There's no denying that.
It certainly was. The professional women cohort. I was speaking with someone in the Climate 200 camp, and they were saying, you know, the coalition was so focused on the tradies and didn't look at the professional women. That is a group of voters who are only going to grow. And you're talking about a big lump of voters there who all back these teal independents. So if you lose professional women, then it's really hard to get government. And that's something that's only going to grow. And when you look at the women issue, we've talked a bit about this today already. Overall, this is a good story for females in the parliament. So we're looking at about 10% more females across the board in the parliament. The Liberals are dropping down from 13 to, it looks to 7 females in the lower house. When you look at Labor, they've got about 36 women in the caucus. So it works out to be about just under 40% in the lower house, just under 60% in the Senate. So there has been a boost in terms of female representation. The other big story, I think, in terms of looking at the candidates we've got, I think this is a parliament that is more representative of the Australian community than we've ever seen before, because diversity has been the winner in this election. And you look through at some of these candidates who we didn't necessarily think were going to get up. We've got a lot of candidates who have won from very diverse cultural backgrounds. I mentioned the third Labor Senate spot in WA. If that comes through for Labor, that's Fatima Payment. She's a 27-year-old Afghanistan refugee. And you go down the list, there's Sally Siddle-Reid, Sam Lim-Tangney, who we didn't think was going to get a Guernsey, Zanita Mascarenhas and Swan, Dr. Ananda Raja, Cassandra Fernando and Holt. This is a really diverse parliament.
Well, Kieran, I've got to agree with one particular point that Ash said about the tradies. This was a very blokey campaign from Scott Morrison and has been for 3 years. And he was in high-vis vests all the time. And he was talking economy, national security. And I'll be interested to hear Parnell's views on this. She polls. She would know that cost of living and health are actually the main concerns of people. And certainly I would say of women, not that I want to stereotype that, but Scott Morrison had a lot of blokes on his staff. Let's be frank about it. I don't think he had the and his sort of number 2 was a bloke, Josh Frydenberg. He didn't have the wide array of advice that he needed. Look at what Anthony Albanese campaigned on. Childcare, Medicare, aged care. He, not just the teals, was targeting that female vote. And I think he did it pretty well. I just wanted to say something else about Tim Wilson. He never mentioned Zoe Daniels' name. I think that's pretty poor form. I also think, I covered an Olympics once, I covered the cycling actually, and I noticed there that athletes cry when they win and they cry when they lose. But basically it's all about them. And I think we've seen a lot of that the last couple of days.